If I hold my head like this, the gap between my head and my hair kind of looks like a Christmas tree, which is about as Christmassy as this filming setup gets. Hi! So today, as you'll already be able to tell, I would like to talk to you about the books that I did not like in 2017. So I guess you could call this my bottom reads of 2017 if you wanted to. So the first book I would like to talk about that I did not like that I read in 2017 is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This is a book that everyone really likes to talk about as an amazing, phenomenal, heart-wrenching, beautifully written book. And while I will not deny that I cried like a baby at the ending of it, I found most of this book extremely frustrating to read. I actually felt like this book was trying to be a work of literary fiction and failing. Like, it felt like an author who was trying to write with symbolism and motifs and stuff like that, but just not quite hitting the mark as well as I hoped. And I found that extremely frustrating to read the whole way through. There were parts of it that I thought were absolutely beautiful, but the overall writing style just grated on me from start to finish. The second book that I really did not like from 2017 is Heartless by Marissa Meyer, which will come as no surprise to anyone because I have bitched and moaned about this book a lot. So Heartless is supposed to be a villain origin story where you start off with a normal character that is sympathetic and likable to the audience, and you watch them slowly progress into the character that you know from another story, which is of course the Queen of Hearts. And to be honest, Catherine was not sympathetic at all. No one cares what happens to her. I found it so hard to be sympathetic with her whatsoever. And I also felt like the actual progression from her being Catherine to her being the Queen of Hearts wasn't a progression. It was like a, oh, steady, steady, steady journey, and then like a massive jump to being the Queen of Hearts for no good reason. It just made no sense. And that made me extremely angry because I had such high hopes for this book and they were all shattered. Another book that I did not like in 2017, which should also come as no surprise to anyone, is A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the final book in the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. I loved ACOTAR and adored Akamath, and I was so excited for A Court of Rings and Ruin, and it just let me down. The first part of the book was really long with things that weren't actually relevant to the plot line at all, and then like no time spent at all on the stuff that actually did matter for like the progression of the story and the wrap up of the story. There were so many plot points that happened that then you would read on and get to another point in the book that would just render that whole plot point completely irrelevant and unnecessary. Honestly, I should probably make a separate video of why I don't actually like ACOTAR because I could go on for quite some time, but it disappointed me a lot. The next one that I didn't like is Flame in the Mist. A lot of people try and say that the reason why it's not very popular is because it was like advertised as a Mulan retelling when it wasn't supposed to be a Mulan retelling, but that is not my problem with this book. Mulan retelling or not, I don't care. It was not a good book. Instead of actually having a story arc from start to end, it just kind of went and then suddenly it stopped, and like there's more story after it, there's more stuff happening over here somewhere, but instead it just kind of ended, and it was like a deliberate cliffhanger that made you supposedly need to get the next book when it comes out so that you know what happens in the next part. And also the main character in the book is actually like the least useful and the least interesting character in the whole story. Like, she needed to leave and let the others get on with their shit. I'm getting so petty about these books. The next one is one that I actually got into trouble from when I made my spoiler-free review of it, and that of course is Salems Lot. Salems Lot started off really strongly, and it would have been a really great work of suspenseful fiction if it wasn't also trying to be a work of literary fiction, in my opinion. Because instead of being like suspenseful with all the like mystery what's going on stuff, it was just interspersed with these massive pages and pages of just like literary background story, which was beautiful to read. Like, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with either the suspense or like the beautiful background stories. I just didn't think they worked well in like juxtaposition with each other. It made for some very tedious, slow reading in what was supposed to be like a spooky, thrilling Halloween kind of book. The next book that I didn't like in 2017 is an interesting one for me because this was a reread, and that is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. So I listened to all of the Harry Potter books from start to finish on audiobook narrated by Stephen Fry, and this was one of the first times that I had reread Harry Potter since I was like still in high school, and it made me really aware of the fact that I don't like the last books in the Harry Potter series. The first 4 I think are great, but it gets gets further along and J.K. Rowling just gets a little bit more complacent in her writing, and the editors just let her get away with writing whatever the hell she wants without any editing going on, and they get longer and longer, and more stuff happens that doesn't actually need to be there, and it just drags on me. And this particular book, Harry Potter 5, I really don't like because of the miscommunication. Like, the whole plotline in Harry Potter 5 relies on the two main characters, Harry Potter and Dumbledore, not communicating with each other, which makes sense on Harry Potter's part because he's 15 years old and he's just been through all of his traumatic stuff, but from Dumbledore's part it does not make sense at all that he would not know better than to not let people know what's going on in his plans. And so the last book that I didn't like in 2017 was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, for the same kind of reasons. I just find that it was long and dragging, and J.K. Rowling starts killing off people, and there's plot points that don't really make sense and that get really fantastical. The whole logic-y explanation thing that she tries to do behind like why Voldemort dies the way he does, and the stuff with the Elder Wand and who owns the Elder Wand, and the fact that Harry Potter was supposed to die but then he doesn't die for the weird magic reason of the blood and stuff, like it just felt a little bit too extreme. Like she was pushing the limits of what I could believe was possible in this universe to the very, very extreme. It's just a little bit too fantastical, and that's coming from someone who absolutely loves fantasy, so that's saying a lot. So yay, welcome to me getting petty about all of the books that I read in 2017 that just didn't quite do it for me. I'm more than happy to discuss it respectfully below in the comments, but try and remember that these are only opinions and I'm entitled to my opinions. You're entitled to yours. I'll see you in another 2017 wrap-up video very shortly, I am sure, and until then, as always, stay classic.
Sit there and count your fingers.